Welcome to the 2020 Chargers predictions video. So last time I did the Broncos and that video ran ridiculously long, so now I know that I have to try to kind of speed up my thoughts and not just blabber on about everything. So here we go. Chargers went 5-11 last season. First order of business though is to talk about their new logo and new uniforms. Their logo is literally basically the exact same, except for there's a little bolt off the A if you look at the logo with the text included. So, I mean, logo doesn't change. The logo looked fine before. Now, the uniforms, on the other hand, uniforms kind of changed in a big way. The design they use is kind of almost like they're looking back to, like, the original Chargers uniform designs, or at least, maybe not original, but like the 1960s era looks. And I really like the light blue on white, the light blue on yellow, and the white on white look for those. The white on yellow, I'm not as much as a fan of. I really like that they're throwing the numbers on the helmets again. It gives them something unique that other teams don't have, and it's cool. Uh, then there's the two shades of dark blue they have. They have the really dark blue and like the lighter dark blue, I guess I'll call it. Um, The medium dark blue I think looks okay. However, the dark blue I'm not in love with, especially since the logo on the helmet changes with the dark blue. But 4 out of 6 of these uniforms I really like. 5 out of 6 I'm completely fine with, and the last one I don't really love. But I mean, if you have a big combination of uniforms to wear so that you can satisfy many audiences, then that's probably a good thing. And I would rather have 6 available options than one available option that just looks terrible. Okay, here are the notes for the last season though. They're a 5-11 team that didn't lose a game by more than one score until week 15. I thought that was a huge thing to know because wow, they lost 2 games by double multiple scores. That's pretty crazy for a 5-11 team to do that because that means they were in most of their games. I guess I don't study it closely, so maybe that happens more often than I think. But they had a lot of down to the wire games for how bad their record turned out to be. First thing, Joey Bosa is obviously a dominant player. Melvin Ingram is also a very good player, but watching him, I realize he's more athletic than I thought. Keenan Allen may be the most underrated receiver in the league. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, he's not the one making the spectacular catches because route runners will never be loved as much as the guys that can go up in triple coverage and make a contested catch. But Keenan Allen gets wide open, and he's a very good player for them. Also, when I watch Austin Eckler, he has shades of young Doug Martin. But don't worry, that's not an insult because Doug Martin's career did not end well. He's better than Doug Martin, I think. Mike Williams is a spectacular catch god. Like, seriously, they threw so many balls up to him last season that I was shocked that he went up and made the play on all of them. It's really nice to see him turning up. Um, then I want to talk about Phillip Rivers a little bit because I saw a lot of Phillip Rivers, and even though he's not on the team, I've got to mention it. Indianapolis may have the right scheme to use Phillip Rivers the way they want, but I think it was the right decision for the Chargers to move on from him with what they were doing. He forced passes. He forced passes in the clutch so much, and I mean, there's one against the Lions at the beginning of the season where it's the end of the fourth quarter and they're in field goal range and they're down 10-13. They're gonna tie the game as long as he doesn't throw an interception on this third down, and he throws a ball to the end zone in contested coverage that there was no reason to do. He could have done anything else just to give his team a chance in overtime, but instead he threw it up. I don't know. He's gonna argue that that's competitiveness, but I just think that's stupid. Um, Once again, I mentioned Keenan Allen gets open a lot. He does catch the ball in traffic, but like I said, they weren't throwing the jump balls to him like they were to Mike Williams, where Mike Williams was making amazing plays on them. Early in the season, it seemed like Tremaine Pope and Justin Jackson, if Austin Eckler wasn't in the game, would get the job done. But by the end of the season, it really seemed apparent that if Eckler wasn't in the game, I'm just not even including Melvin Gordon in this discussion, by the way. If Eckler wasn't in the game, they were not having as much success running the ball. So I I think they definitely needed to fill a need at the RB2 spot after Austin Eckler, but the offensive line play was not tremendous. I mean, even when you looked at good plays, it looked like they were getting pressure very quickly. Also, I don't know what the heck was up with this, but they were running a ton of jet motion all year with no threat at all. I did not see them give a jet sweep once, and they ran jet motion all year. It didn't make any sense to me. I hate talking about home field advantage when talking about this team, but seriously, looking back at some of the games last year, they really had a tough time even in their home stadium having like a very strong environment to play in and root for them. So I don't want to say that it's not necessarily terrible. If your home field doesn't give you a huge home field advantage, it's almost like playing at a neutral site. But I think it definitely helps a lot if you have a home field advantage. Also, Melvin Gordon missed a ton of time last season and in the beginning of the season because of him holding out, and it just looks funny. The first time he got on the field, he looked absolutely lost because all the practice time he probably missed. It was pretty funny. By the way, offense looked a lot better once Hunter Henry came back. That's huge because if Hunter Henry wasn't on the field, it was Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, or going to a running back. But besides that, there was no receiving talent on this team. So Hunter Henry was a huge need for them to be on the field. The safety Jenkins is really good, at least in the way he played last season. But it was really strange when I was looking at the defense overall. He was one of the players that stood out, but with all those other big names they had in the secondary, he was the only one that stood out, and that felt really strange to me. They obviously had big plays, very limited by Phillip Rivers' arm. He would underthrow a lot of balls to wide open deep receivers that would end up getting caught, but could have turned into touchdowns if they hadn't been underthrown. So you'd like to see that a little different. Still, just even more games that I watched stuff on. Just Rivers loves throwing fourth quarter interceptions. The one thing you lose with losing Phillip Rivers, though, is that he did read the defense pretty well. Like, if he saw a matchup immediately that he liked, he would get rid of the ball quick and play. And it would usually be a smart decision, and it would help them out. Joey Bosa, just one more mentioning of him, is that playmaking defensive end that every team wants at least one of. The Chargers may have two defensive ends that are just crazy talented in Bosa and Ingram, but man, it really is it's game changing some games with having those guys on the edge. I know I'm watching the Chargers, but geez, when they played the Bears, the Chargers won, but geez, my heart just got ripped out for Bears fans. Like, man, I think the NFL should just outlaw if you get your team into like relative field goal range and it feels like it should be an easily made kick, maybe not easily, but relatively normal kick for any circumstance besides a 2-minute drill, and then your kicker misses it with no time on the clock to lose the game. Boy, that's sad. I mean, that's just I don't know who likes winning or losing that way. Once again, Anthony Lynn Mastermind is showing the jet sweep but never actually using it. So maybe next season they'll learn that if they show it so much, they could actually get the thing involved if they're going to act like it's there. Also, 75% of their plays involve someone running a corner route or a flag route. I don't know. I just was not a fan of watching their play calling last season. And I definitely think having poor play calling can hurt you even if you have a talented roster. Once again, I looked at the secondary and saw that there's so many big names, but it just didn't feel like any of them were flashing. And then the two times I saw Tyrod Taylor play, I enjoyed seeing what he did. He seemed like he did well. Now I looked into their stats at the end of the year rather than just watching. Ah, holy cow! Their third wide receiver on the team. I didn't even think this would be possible. Their third receiver on their team. I'm only talking wide receivers, by the way. Caught 8 passes. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then the third guy, I didn't even bother to take down his name because he caught 8 passes. That's awful. I mean, your third receiver, if it's not at least 20 receptions, that's just wow. Then two guys with interception numbers, Rayshon Jenkins and Mike Davis. Rayshon Jenkins got 3 picks, Mike Davis got 2 interceptions. It's really weird seeing these two names that I really don't recognize with the other names in the secondary, but those were the 2 highest interception leaders on the team. They had no interior D-line pressure at all last year. Only the edge rush with Bosa and Ingram, so that's not good. They need to reevaluate their linebacker situation completely. And they had a really weak interior defensive line. It's just bad. It was really bad. But I think I missed one of my notes because re-looking at the linebacker situation from last year, I remember that I wrote something about Thomas Davis, and I can't seem to find it, but I'll just tell you basically what I wrote, which was that Thomas Davis was really fun to watch in their games last season, just because he's really getting up there in age, but you could tell every play you saw him getting in on, he was giving it all of his effort, and it's just cool to see that someone can have so much passion for something that they've been doing for something like 15 years at this point. Alright, now here we go with some injuries they had last season that hurt them. Hunter Henry early season. Like I said before, their offense looked so much better once Hunter Henry was on the field. He's a great target for them, and he could be like one of those top tight ends in the league if he could stay on the field and get a connection going with whoever the starting quarterback is for them next season. Derwin James missed most of the early season, so I guess that's one of the reasons one of the big names wasn't so prevalent. He had a really nice play against the Jaguars where he stopped Leonard Fournette short of a first down. I remember that. And I guess I'll say that Derwin James' season was mostly lost because of injury. Mike Pouncey and Forrest Lamp missed the second half of the season, which is very important because Russell Okung also missed just throughout the season. He didn't miss the whole season, but he missed games throughout the year, and they had a lot of losses on they just had a lot of offensive line trouble. So you could say that a lot of those offensive line issues were due to the injury on the offensive line. So I guess I'll go with that. Now, moving on to who they acquired and who left the team this season. They acquired Nick Vigil, linebacker. Huge because like I said, the linebacker play last year was terrible. So just get linebackers to fill the room. Then, I love this one. Linval Joseph to go on the interior defensive line. That makes so much sense. They needed it. Then you had Chris Harris at cornerback, which is really a confusing one. I understand that Chris Harris is an extremely talented player, but I didn't feel like secondary was an area in need, so it's weird to put a certain amount of cap into that. And then 2 offensive line prospects here. Not prospects, these guys are actually proven vets. Brian Bulaga and Trey Turner are both very good offensive linemen that will come in and help the situation there. But I'm pretty sure, even though I mentioned Russell Okung earlier, I'm pretty sure he's gone. So Mike Pouncey's the center, Trey Turner's going to be the right guard, and Brian Bulaga will probably be the right tackle. But either Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert are going to be the starting quarterback. Those are both right-handed guys. And the left side of the offensive line still looks really weak, and that's going to be the blind side. So you don't necessarily love to see that, but at least you have one side of the line that I consider really strong. Then departures from the team. You have Adrian Phillips and Derek Watt. I'm not really sure what's up with Thomas Davis, but even if he is still on the team, he's really getting up there, and it's going to be really hard for him to keep going much longer. So I didn't put Thomas Davis in the departure column, but I'm pretty sure he retired. Can't remember for sure, but even if he's on the team, I don't feel the impact will be massive. But the two guys I said, Adrian Phillips and Derek Watt, are the guys that are leaving. Fullback for this team, I guess not a big deal. I think Steelers fans are probably going to be pretty hyped to have Derek Watt on their team, though. It's just cool that they can have two Watt brothers on their team. Adrian Phillips, on the other hand, that's a name of a safety that I haven't really looked into much, but I've definitely heard his name around for a while. So I feel like that could be a key loss, but really they didn't lose anything huge here. So you like when you can maintain most stuff. Oh, and obviously Phillip Rivers departed too. I can't believe I didn't write that down, but I feel like I talked about Phillip Rivers so much earlier that is kind of obvious. All right, so now we got their draft picks. Justin Herbert is extremely smart and has great size, but something feels off about his game to be great immediately. I think Justin Herbert is more similar to Josh Allen than I don't know. He seems really similar to Josh Allen, though. I feel like he could be a really good player. I just don't think it's going to happen immediately. I think that Justin Herbert will, if he starts, I like the idea of Tyrod Taylor playing this entire season. If Tyrod Taylor plays this entire season, I think the team's record will be much better than it would be with Justin Herbert. Now, in the future, I definitely think that would change. But I think Tyrod Taylor's the right decision for this year. So that's going to put a lot of stuff up in the air when it comes to predicting the record. Now, next pick, they went with Kenneth Murray, linebacker from Oklahoma. I can't believe that he fell this far. Honestly, he got to pick 23 where they took him, and it was just obvious. It's a position they need. They had little to no linebacker production last year at all, and one of the best linebacker prospects in the entire draft is still sitting there at 23. I mean, you had to go with him. Next, Josh Kelly, they picked, I think, in the 4th round. He feels just like Maurice Jones-Drew. And I was watching him and I was thinking that. And then while I was thinking that, I realized this guy went to UCLA. And I looked it up because I was like, I feel like Maurice Jones-Drew did too. And of course, Maurice Jones-Drew did go to UCLA as well. So I actually really like that pick because they get a guy that seems... It's just whenever you get a comparison in your head to somebody who was so good for so long, it's like, oh, it's really hard to not fall in love or like a player when that just hits you in your head. It's like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing, feeling just like Darren Sproles. It's like, it feels just like it, and it's like I'm going to root for these guys because I see something in them. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to turn into something, but yeah. Also, at the time when I was looking at this, I was like, seems weird that they went running back here, but it's a fine selection because I do like the player they got. But then, things changed for me because all of the rest of their picks I like as well. Joe Reed is a wide receiver. He does not have any crazy ability when it comes to normal receiver talents, but he's very good in the open field. He's also a great kick returner, but he's unusually sized for a kick returner. He seems big and bulky for a kick returner, but he gets the job done. I mean, he finds open lanes and gets up the field and shakes off tacklers and gets around them. So, I mean, I really like him in the kick return department, and just being a kick returner is enough to win you a spot on a roster in the NFL. Also, the other reason I really like him is because they showed that stupid jet sweep look 700 times last season and never ran it. Maybe if this guy's on the field, since he's such a good open field player, they'll be able to put him in that jet sweep receiver role, whether that is actually taking the jet sweep or still running their fakes like they did 100 times last year. Next, they picked a safety from Notre Dame named Alohi Gilman. I really like this guy. I don't know why, but this guy went so late. it seems like he's just a player that you would want on your team, and it seems weird that he dropped this far. He's a strong safety. He forces fumbles. He gets interceptions. When he hits somebody and tackles them, it's powerful. It's strong. It's like I I'm just confused because I'm like, how is this guy sitting here available at this point? These GMs and scouts are supposed to be looking all across the country at every single player. I don't know why this guy was still on the board. So I really like that pick as well. The only thing that's weird still to me is that they're picking a position in the secondary that I don't feel like is a need. Lastly, though, they did here, on the other hand, is one of the positions that I would say was a need for them late, which they already picked Joe Reed as a wide receiver, but they got a receiver again in KJ Hill, who's from Ohio State. He is Ohio State's all-time receptions leader. That's crazy when you think about how productive a school like Ohio State has been over the year and how much of a football powerhouse they are. To be the all-time receptions leader at that school, that's really impressive. He also runs very good routes and gets open. I don't know about his contested catch ability because most of the time he was catching passes when he gets wide open. But how can you say that that's a knock if somebody's getting open? That's just it. It wouldn't make any sense to say that it's a knock if somebody's wide open. He's wide open. That's a good trait to have. Alrighty, now we're finally to the point where we talk about what their record prediction is. And boy, I have felt weird about this the entire time. Man, this team is really up in the air to me. Like I said before, they went 5-11 last year, and it just seems weird talking about how they're going to do this year. I'm really struggling with it, and I think Tyrod Taylor and Justin Herbert make a huge difference. Let's start with the opponents in their division, though. They're going to play the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, and Las Vegas Raiders, each twice. So those are their first six games we'll talk about. Chiefs, I don't think they're going to touch them. 0-2. Raiders and Broncos, though. I think the Raiders and Broncos will be groups of games that they'll be able to split. Because I really like the Broncos, and I don't necessarily love the Raiders as much, but I think the Raiders may be able to steal a game, or the Broncos will be able to beat them twice, because I really like what the Broncos have been doing. So I'm going to say in the division they'll go 2-4. Then we got some other home opponents. They're going to play New England at home. I think they're talented enough to beat New England. The more I mention New England, the more and more I realize how much I'm putting them in the drain of how bad I'm going to make them, but I think they should be able to beat New England. That makes them 3-4. Now they play the New York Jets. I think this roster is definitely still more talented than the New York Jets. I think they can beat the New York Jets as well. That's 4-4. Next, Atlanta Falcons. They're playing the Falcons at home, and I don't know how the Falcons are going to be next season. They also play the Panthers at home. So what I'll say here is that either the Panthers or Falcons will be a game that they win. One of those two. So they were at 4-4 before. Now they're at 5-5. And then they've got Jacksonville at home. I think Jacksonville is going to be one of the worst teams in the league next season. They're just all over the place. They'll win that game. They'll go to 6-5. Now, they got to go on the road, though, and this is where it may get tough. They got to go to my Buffalo Bills. I don't think they're going to come to Buffalo and beat us. I think they're a good team, but I don't think they're going to come to Buffalo and beat us. 7-5. They go to Miami. They won in Miami last year. I think both teams improved, but they beat Miami pretty substantially last year, so I think they can win that game too. That puts them at 8-5. Now, New Orleans. New Orleans and Tampa. They've got to go to both those places. I cannot see them winning both those games, and I don't really see them even winning one of those games. So that'll put them at 8-7 if they drop those two games. And then I've got one more game left to talk about, which is against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals had the first overall pick last year. And even though I really liked all the picks they made, I think that the Chargers are a much better team than them. And I'm going to say with that, that'll be a win. That'll be 9-7. Now, I guess the one thing to mention right here at the end of this video is that since the Chargers are 9-7, I have now done predictions for 6 teams in the NFL, and I have not picked a losing record for any of them yet. So, I mean, it's just crazy that I've looked at these opponents and that's how I've decided that I think they're going to do, but I really don't. I uh, I think the Raiders will probably be my first team that I do that has a losing record, but I can't be sure because I do have to look at their individual matchups and how they'll play against them. The other thing that gives the Chargers an advantage is since they came in fourth in the AFC West last year, they get those they get Jacksonville and Cincinnati as their 2 extra games, which I think actually just puts them over the hump enough to go 9-7. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with these guys, but I think I think 9-7 is where I'll sit on the prediction for these guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.
So here we go, Charles, third down. Any chance you're throwing?
I don't think so. I think you got to keep the clock rolling here.
And they, in fact, will throw it. And he will be very close to a first down, but I see the closed fist of the referee, and that means fourth down. This late in the game, Charles, I think you maybe seriously have to think about going for it.
Especially where they are in terms of field position, because this is almost like no man's land. Might hurt your punter because there might not be enough space, maybe too far for your field goal kicker. I'm like the old rule. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Possession is 9/10 of winning the game. Go for it. Get the first down. Close it out.
On fourth down, the punt team is on as this is sent away. Oh, he's taken down here by his face mask by the looks of it. And a penalty flag is going to give a much better starting position. Well, when you're leading in the fourth quarter, that's not the penalty you want.
Not at all, and now your discipline comes into question. Having poise this stage of the game, you can't have those kind of plays.
He's got a first down and then some at midfield. And he's going to be out of bounds right at midfield. Give him 13 yards there and a Kansas City first down. From midfield, here's Mahomes. That's caught over the middle by Seals-Jones. And he gets it inside the 35 and just